What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Wildcard Weekend edition here of the Draftkings matchup breakdown. I'm David Kitchen, Soccer Dave. Joining me, Geoff Ulrich and Adam Levitan and Andrew Wiggins, a.k.a. Makisupa. Guys, are you ready for this wild card and crazy weekend of games?
Yeah, it's not a good 4-game slate, but it's still going to be a fun 4-game slate, I would say.
And it's a 4-game slate. Like, that's all you need. Like, it's an NFL slate. So we're all going to be playing regardless. There are some big tournaments there on DraftKings. And a lot of people, even with the short slates, like a lot of people just really enjoy the entertainment aspect of sweating along these games, Andrew. So you're going to see a lot of action. Like, it doesn't matter if you just want to play cash games against your friends or a complete stranger. A lot of people are going to be playing this weekend.
I really enjoyed the playoffs last year. I'm looking forward to this year. It's just literally every play matters because you can bet dollars to donuts somebody has that player, even if it's some guy you never considered. Maybe that's not the case during the regular season, but right now, welcome to the big time.
All right. With that being said, let's talk about the injuries because that is a big part of this. And Adam, I'll start with you. What are some of the injuries going on in the AFC right now?
Yeah, obviously the biggest one is D'Angelo Williams. I do not expect him to play. Sprained his ankle pretty badly in Week 17. The only guys that they have behind him are guys named Fitzgerald Toussaint, or Toussaint, as it might be pronounced, Jordan Todman, and a fullback, Will Coleman. So I expect Toussaint to get the start and get the vast majority of work. Todman has been mostly a special teamer throughout his career. I think that depending on how the game goes, I could see Toussaint getting maybe 10 to 15 carries. I just don't know how effective he'll be because, A, he's not good, and Cincinnati has a pretty strong defense. Regardless, I would expect a more pass-heavy attack out of the Steelers. Also in that game, Martavis Bryant left Week 17 with a neck strain, but upon further investigation, it looks like he was flat benched for running a bad route that ended in a Ben Roethlisberger interception. So, Martavis is certainly a gifted guy. His last 2 weeks have been really bad. He got called out by Big Ben. It seems to me like right now Big Ben has more faith in Marcus Wheaton than Martavis Bryant. In other games,
Go ahead.
No, let's stay. Give it to me.
No, I was just going to say some people like Martavis Bryant was owned by some people that were infuriated last week.
Yeah, I love Martavis the last 2 weeks too. Like it pretty tilting. Ben, I think, thinks he's soft, not making enough plays on the ball and running bad routes. I mean, it's pretty bad. But anyways, I'll move on to the next game, Kansas City and Houston. The skill position news is both Nate Washington and Cecil Shorts are banged up. They're both listed day to day. I think Cecil will play. I'm not so sure about Nate Washington. Either way, it's a difficult matchup against a Kansas City pass defense. Like, if you look at year-long Kansas City pass defense, they're actually graded out pretty poorly, but it's been such a turnaround for them since they got Marcus Peters playing better and just, kind of turning their whole secondary around. So I'm scared of their secondary. I really don't want to use Nate Washington or Cecil, even if they're active. And then quickly on the offensive line, Dwayne Brown, stud left tackle for the Texans, is out with a torn quad. And meanwhile, stud edge rusher Justin Houston for the Chiefs is expected back. So a tough situation for the Texans.
All right, now NFC, Geoff, hit us.
Yeah, it's a little bit clearer over in the NFC. Looking at the Seahawks and the Vikings. So Tyler Lockett's been a little bit banged up. He didn't practice yesterday, I don't believe. I'm pretty sure he's going to play in the game. He might be maybe not 100%, so it's just something to keep an eye on, see if he practices in full on Friday. I really like him if he is 100%. I think he's going to, with Doug Baldwin drawing coverage and stuff over, I think he could be a really nice play this week. So, but he is a little bit banged up right now. The big news for Seattle is Marshawn Lynch looks like he's going to play. He practiced in full Wednesday. We were talking about this before, but Pete Carroll's the type of guy who would probably just throw him out there, especially since they don't really have another running back they could rely on. Christine Michael's been okay, but he's not really a passing back. I think you'll see a lot of Lynch in this game, especially if he practices the next couple of days. So For the Vikings, their defense was a little bit banged up. I haven't checked on exactly who's been in and out, but it looks like they've been getting more healthy the last couple of weeks. So that's good for them because they really struggled in the run D with some of those guys out, like Linville Joseph. So offensively, Adrian Peterson's just looks like he's just getting rest. He looks like he's going to be fine for this game. Obviously the Vikings receivers and stuff, they look like they're all going to be healthy. I'm not sure if I want to play too many of them anyways, but as far as they go, they're pretty healthy on offense. The Green Bay Washington game, I think the big spot is just the Washington running back position. It looks like Matt Jones is going to be super questionable and probably won't play if I was going to guess right now. That's going to leave Alfred Morris, Chris Thompson, and Pierre Thomas. I really like Pierre Thomas. It's tough to say if he's going to get like the passing back downs. If he did, I would definitely be in on him as a cheap PPR play. I think this game has a bit more potential. But that's pretty much it for that game. Green Bay's looking pretty healthy. Both the running backs are healthy. So really just key on that Washington running back spot.
All right, let's take a look at Kansas City at Houston. And this is like an interesting game. And Andrew, you've been sitting so patiently that I'll let you start off with your analysis.
I dozed off over here. I don't even know who's hurt or who's not. I kid. Yeah, so, I mean, this is a week where it's tough. There aren't a lot of plays across the board at the running back position in particular that you're going to feel great about. And I think it applies to wide receiver too. You're going to feel really good about Antonio Brown. Then everyone else below him, they're probably either slightly overpriced or whatever. But applying it to this game, I do think Alex Smith could be a consideration. He's 5.3K. If you go down to near minimum at quarterback, you can open up some opportunities to spend up, particularly at wide receiver. I'm probably going to go cheap at running back. But also on that team, you have two guys. If you think that you have a good idea who's going to get the touches between West and Ware, I think Ware in particular could be a good play because he is only 4K. We saw him getting a lot of the goal line work prior to his injury. He's been kind of slowly worked back in, but I do think that he could be a pretty big factor here in the playoffs. And if he's getting goal line touches along with maybe 50% of the carries at 4K, I think that he could be a really nice play. Of course, he comes with some risk. And then the last guy I want to mention is Jeremy Maclin. He's 6.4K. He's a little bit banged up, but I think he's going to be all right. He's been playing very well. And in a situation where they might need to be throwing, a lot of games they've had to lead and they've ran the ball and he hasn't had to be involved. If they have to be throwing in this game, he could be poised to have a really big one because those few times that they've thrown a lot, he's put up some monster games. So I like him as a safe play who has some upside.
And we'll go to you, Adam, next. As far as you've got Kansas City as a 3.5 point favorite. What's your take on this Kansas City offense?
Yeah, I mean, the Houston defense has been white hot. Jonathan Joseph, their number 4 PFF coverage corner. I expect to see him a ton on Jeremy Maclin. It doesn't mean Jeremy Maclin can't win. Like, Jeremy Maclin can go into the slot, and Jeremy Maclin is #good. Like, he's seeing roughly 30 to 40% of Alex Smith's targets. So, people try to knock Jeremy Maclin and say, Alex Smith doesn't throw enough, or, he has a tough matchup. Like, I still think Maclin will get 9 to 10 targets, and he's good enough to win with those targets. I certainly like Maclin. I like him more than somebody like Doug Baldwin, who's in the same price range. And also, one thing we haven't talked about is the weather. I mean, this is one game that will have good weather. I mean, it's supposed to be 0 degrees in Minnesota, and we can talk about that when we get to that game. But I think that's a consideration for sure. Andy Reid is typically a coach that prefers to ride one back. He has relented on that, I think, because he sees that Spencer Ware can really play. So I would expect a kind of a continuation of what we saw in week 17, which was roughly even touch split with Spencer Ware getting the goal line work.
All right. Geoff, your take on this Houston offense.
Yeah, it's kind of going to be an interesting spot for DeAndre Hopkins. The Kansas City secondary has been getting better since Sean Smith's gotten back. They've improved as a team. They have a really good pass rush. So I can see Brian Hoyer being under pretty big duress this whole game. I don't love this spot for the Houston offense, to be honest. I really like the Chiefs' D in this spot. But that all being said, if Houston's down late, I expect DeAndre Hopkins to get targeted a ton. This is a winner-take-all game. You use your best options in that game. Why they wouldn't throw to DeAndre 10-plus times in that spot, I'm not sure. I do think that Houston is going to try and use their D, use a run game, and be a little bit more conservative and make this a close, ugly game. So I'm not sure if you'll see Hopkins get massive targets right off the bat, but I do think that there's a chance that he could obviously have a big game. He's not my top option at wide receiver, but I don't think that means that you can't play him, especially on a short slate like this. I think he'll be a little bit under-owned than most. I'm not a huge fan of Alfred Blue in this spot. The Kansas City run defense is just too good. I don't trust Alfred Blue. He doesn't get PPR points. I don't like him. Jalen Strong at 3,000 is kind of interesting as well. The Chiefs, he'll be getting someone, their second or third best corner. So at 3K, he got 6 or 7 targets last week and produced a little bit. So he's got to be a consideration with those injuries at wide receiver.
All right, let's move on to the Pittsburgh at Cincinnati game. We were talking off air just about this Toussaint character. I took Spanish in high school, but I'm pretty sure that's how you say his last name, just because it's croissant and not croissant. And so as a plus size guy, I just identify it with food, Adam. So I'm gonna go with Toussaint. Yeah. So with that being said, Andrew, you're probably the highest on Mr. Toussaint. What's your take on him this week?
Well, I was. Adam's scaring me a little bit. He's reminding me of Ben Tate from last year, because we saw a similar spot with Lev Bell getting hurt, Tate coming in the playoffs, and really being pretty ineffective. We didn't see Toussaint do much last week. He had like 10 carries for 25 yards or something. He did, however, catch a 2-point conversion, so there's some hope that he can be involved in the red zone. But I could see them just going more with the passing attack now. That being said, he's 3.9K. He's on clearly the best offense this week. And I think there's a chance he could get 15 carries or potentially more. Probably not. But that's a lot for 3.9K. So I do think that he's a really strong play. He's probably the running back that I feel the most comfortable with. But I already mentioned I'm not going to feel too comfortable with really any play outside of Antonio Brown this week. But I will be looking long and hard at him. Antonio, there's nothing that really needs to be said. Martavis Bryant kind of comes down to how much you think he's going to be involved. Of course, he was not involved the last 2 weeks. Prior to that, he was heavily involved. He had 10-plus targets for a couple weeks in a row. Everything was pointing up for him, and then all of a sudden, the floor just dropped out. So I'm a little bit concerned about him, but he's too talented. I think they'll get him back involved, but maybe he's more of a tournament play this week just because of what we've seen. And then just one last guy on the other side is I like A.J. McCarron. I think they're going to be down. I think that he'll have to be throwing. He's 5.2K, so kind of like I said with Alex Smith, he can help open up other stuff, and I do prefer him to Alex Smith.
Yeah, and for a GPP lineup, you could go with a little correlation play with Toussaint and then the Bengals offense. But Adam, as far as this Pittsburgh secondary, like they've been known to give up some points. So your take on AJ Green, Marvin Jones? They have weapons in this passing attack.
Yeah, I love using pass game options against the Steelers because the Steelers have a really good run defense. I mean, they're top 5 DVOA and run defense, so automatically teams are going to have to throw more. And then also we know Ben and company are going to put tons of points up, so that's going to force opponents to keep their foot on the gas no matter what the situation is. So, yeah, I like pass game options. I mean, I've been too high on Marvin Jones all year, but he's seen at least five targets in like 14 straight games or something like that. He just hasn't done anything with it yet. But I am convinced that one day Marvin Jones will do something with that usage. I'd say my favorite play is probably Tyler Eifert. Came back last week, only played 58.5% of the snaps coming off the concussion. Normally he is a 90 to 100% of the snaps kind of player. So in this playoff game, I would expect him to be around 100. And as I already mentioned, teams need to throw against the Steelers. So I like Eifert, obviously the number one red zone threat, arguably one of the number one red zone threats in the league.
Geoff, what's your overall take on this game? Like, what are you doing with this game? Is most of your teams going to feature both of these teams, since it is the highest team total, Pittsburgh? Like, just give us the knowledge that you possess, sir.
Oh boy, well, it'd take forever. But no, yeah, no, I think you hit it on the head. I mean, I want to feature some sides of both of this game. So I really like what the guys already said about the Bengals. I really like AJ Green in this game. And I really think that, AJ McCarron might be a great tournament play. I think that Pittsburgh just forces the other team into throwing a lot with their pace of play and with how much they score. So we already touched on that. I like that. I think you also have to be – I'm not saying, fade Antonio Brown, but you have to look back and see that, the Bengals really did shut down Antonio Brown the last two times they played. They have a really good pass defense, and Adam Jones is, he's someone who comes to compete. He's probably going to be covering Antonio Brown. I'm not saying Adam Jones is going to shut down Antonio Brown. I just wouldn't be shocked if Antonio Brown wasn't the highest scoring wide receiver this week. I wouldn't be shocked if AJ Green had a bigger game than him, or someone else that we haven't talked about yet. So I don't think he's necessarily a guarantee play. For cash game purposes, I'm definitely probably going to have him in a cash game lineup. But for tournaments, I think you can go other places than using Antonio Brown. I think Martavis Bryant is going to see probably a lot of Drake Kirkpatrick, who's the worst Bengals cornerback. I think for tournaments, Martavis Bryant's a great pick. He's obviously really risky. A lot of people will be switching back to Marcus Wheaton now that he's gotten the bump. So I think Wheaton's a good value play, but I do think Bryant's got some tournament potential. That's kind of how I'm looking at this game. I also like Heath Miller. He's gotten 20 receptions the last two times the Steelers have played the Bengals. Great security blanket. Probably going to be used more too with no D'Angelo Williams. So there's just a ton of people you can think about in this game.
Even when D'Angelo was healthy last week, I feel like I had shares of every Pittsburgh Steeler except for Heath Miller, and he got the first touchdown. So, I wouldn't be surprised if there were Heath chance in this game. Also, just a scheduling note, this will be the heaviest owned game, and it's on a Saturday night. The AFC is on Saturday, the NFC is on Sunday. So, not a whole lot of opportunities to swap. Unless you're going heavy on the NFC games, which could be something that you want to do. So let's start there. The first NFC game is,
Minnesota.
Yeah, it's the Minnesota game. Okay, sorry. I wasn't sure which one it is. So, Adam, you take the Minnesota game.
How much would you have to get paid to go to this game on Sunday?
It's going to be cold.
0 degrees with wind chill of -20. And I don't really enjoy NFL football games anyways because of all of the blatant alcoholism. You know what I mean? So I'm frightened that I'm going to be cold. You might have to pay me $300 to go to this game.
The worst thing for the games is all the commercial timeouts, because they seem, when it's cold and you're at a football game, those commercial timeouts take forever.
So brutal.
So, yeah, it's going to be a gross game.
Yeah. So we don't have much data on games between 0 and 5 degrees, or even 0 and 10 degrees. It just doesn't happen that often. I will say that games between 15 and 32 degrees, there isn't a large negative correlation with fantasy stats. So I don't know, I'm inclined to downgrade Russell Wilson due to the weather and Doug Baldwin due to the weather. But I'm not sure if that's really correct or not. Either way, I like Marshawn Lynch. I don't have many concerns about his injury. I think he took a ton of time coming back with it, probably more time than most guys take, practicing in full this week. Coaches talking about giving him 20 to 25 touches. I kind of like Marshawn Lynch more than I like Adrian Peterson, which may be a hot take. It's just, for me, Adrian Peterson in games where the Vikings are 5-point dogs is just not something I'm interested in.
All right. Geoff?
Yeah, I already mentioned Tyler Lockett, so I do still like him, assuming he's healthy. You do have to worry a little bit about the weather. I think it really bumps up. I think it helps the Vikings more than the Seahawks, because the Seahawks passing offense has been so good lately, and it could be affected, especially if it's more windy. So it's really tough to figure out what is going to go on with this game. I still really like Russell Wilson as a play, but I do feel like his upside is capped this week, which makes me think that maybe this isn't quite the week to stay on him. He's just got so much potential with the running too, and perhaps he breaks 100 yards rushing. It could happen in this game. He had over 50 against the Vikings the first time they played. Vikings obviously playing a bit better right now. I do kind of like Jermaine Kearse as a bit of a mid-price play too. On on Minnesota, they're passing. They just don't pass so much. But Stephon Diggs, for a tournament option, he's going to see one of the weaker Seattle cornerbacks this week. Most likely, it looks like Mike Wallace is going to get Richard Sherman. So he's someone to consider. But overall, this is probably going to be like a 17-13 game, it looks like. So not a ton of fantasy points.
Yeah, I will have pretty much little to none exposure to this game, except for maybe Seattle's defense. Andrew, you have to pick a wide receiver for Seattle. Who's it going to be? Because you have 3 options.
I think it's pretty easy, actually. I like Jermaine Kearse a lot for 3.3K. Just you need some savings somewhere, and he's actually been pretty good. Now, granted, 2 of the last games he caught touchdowns, so you can't really bank on that. But the game before that, he had 7 catches, over 100 yards. There's just not many min plays. I mean, Jalen Strong, I think, is okay depending on the health over there. But Kearse to me is the good cheap play, so I'm going with him.
All right, let's move on then to the Washington and Green Bay game. And this is the last game of the night. So this is when you're going to be doing all the swaps in your cash games, making sure that you don't have any overlap, reverse engineering your opponent's lineup, and doing some strategery. So, Andrew, will stay here with you as far as there appears to be some options in this game.
Yeah, well, I mean, Jordan Reed in particular, the guy – I mean, what can't you say about Jordan Reed? He's been insanely good.
Pretty sure whatever you can't say has already been said by Adam at some point this season.
I mean, I think you got to find a way to get him in your lineup. And if you want to play Heath Miller or Eifert, that's fine by me, but I would probably flex them. Reed has got to be one of the best plays on the board just because of how good he's been in the position he's at. I'll be starting with him. He's the main guy I'm looking at. I think Deshaun Jackson as a tournament play is pretty interesting. He's been pretty solid. Last week, I don't even know if he was out there. He put up a 0, but he was kind of hurt, and they were limiting their guys anyway. So ignore that game. Before that, he's been pretty good. I wouldn't be surprised if he breaks a long one. I think I'm going to avoid the running back situation. It's just too muddy for me. But Alfred Morris is pretty cheap. I don't think I can do it. And then the Green Bay side, they've just been so bad. Maybe Eddie Lacy, but he's a little bit banged up. He was limited in practice yesterday, and I don't know. I can't believe how bad the Green Bay offense has been this year. I did not see that coming, even though I knew Jordy would hurt a little, but my goodness.
Yeah, and now you've got all these comparisons of Kirk Cousins to Aaron Rodgers, which is just crazy. When you think about the course of the season, all the preseason hype for Rodgers compared to Cousins, being on the hot seat. Adam, what is going on here? You have all these comparisons now. If you watch ESPN, any sort of blog, you've got it's sensationalism. That's what it is, I think.
Yeah, well, why were we so convinced that Kirk Cousins was bad?
I mean, I wasn't. I said he was the next Aaron Rodgers.
Because he was bad for a year.
I mean, he turned the ball over a ton, but from a fantasy perspective, he had 400-yard games. How many guys in the NFL can actually are capable of throwing 400 yards? Medi Bridgewater, certainly not. You know what I mean? There's a lot of guys that are supposed to be really good that aren't even capable of doing that. So I don't know. I like Kirk Cousins. I mean, Deshaun Jackson, it is what it is. He's going to run deep down the field, and he's going to get 4 or 5 chances to catch bombs in this game. If Sam Shields, the best outside corner for the Packers, is unable to play due to his continued concussion issues, then I would give Deshaun Jackson a nice bump. I'd say that I've been playing DFS football for 3 years now, and I have not rostered Alfred Morris once, and I don't plan on doing it this week either, but I would say he's at least on the list, especially if Matt Jones is unable to play. If you think the Redskins are going to get a lead in this game, you would think that Alfred Morris is a reasonable bet for a touchdown. And, I mean, Jordan Reed could be 60, 70% owned in tournaments. I'm not sure that there's really a good case for fading him even at that percentage, unless you're hoping for injury, which we never hope for injury from our heroes, the NFL players.
No, we do not. Your take on this Green Bay offense, Geoff?
Yeah, I might be going down with the ship this week because I still like Aaron Rodgers. cost me money this year to play Aaron Rodgers over guys like Kirk Cousins who, are just producing this year, like Blake Bortles, Kirk Cousins. They've been the ones that have been producing for fantasy rather than some of these elite quarterbacks. So that all being said, I think that the Green Bay offense might be behind in this game, and I could see, it's still Aaron Rodgers throwing the ball. So on a short slate, if you're looking to get off some of those more popular QB plays, I think that going with like Aaron Rodgers, James Jones, maybe James Starks in there with Lacey a little bit banged up, I think that kind of stack could work. I think that Rodgers is in a good spot. I think that the Washington defense is probably their weakest area. Washington's played great lately. Love watching them play. They score a lot of points, but they also have a pretty weak secondary, and it's something that Aaron Rodgers can take advantage of. So I think that you have to consider him as a play. James Jones has been picking up a little bit. I think that just as if I was picking another game to target, it would be this one over the Pittsburgh Cincy game.
Yeah, the 2 night games are the ones you want to target. Andrew, as far as if you had to choose in a GPP game, would you choose Rodgers or Big Ben?
The problem with Big Ben is he's going to be the most owned, I think, especially in tournaments. So you could look at Rodgers or Russ, who are similar in prices that I think will go generally unowned. I wonder if Rodgers or Russ will be less owned between the two. I mean, when you get to Russ and you can go $200 more to get to Ben, it seems tough with the weather and all the narrative around that game to go Russell. But, of course, he's got plenty of upside. And I think Geoff made a good case for Rodgers, especially in tournaments. One of the problems with him is figuring out who to stack him with. I think James Jones is the obvious choice. But, Devontae Adams has been horrible. He's really cheap. And, Randall Cobb – I probably wouldn't do it with him just because of how bad he's been, and he's actually expensive. So I don't know. I like Rodgers and Wilson both for tournaments quite a bit.
Yeah, and another thing, I know I've been harping on it this show, but I do think that like playing cash games, it doesn't have to necessarily be like to get the most money, but it's fun. Like it's an entertaining aspect. But with 4 games, you're going to have a ton of overlap. So with that being said, if you do start Aaron Rodgers in your Sunday contest, then you can easily go to Kirk Cousins for $500 cheaper if there is overlap there. So just something to think about. But yeah, the 4-game slate, there's just going to be a ton of overlap. That's just how it is as far as lineup construction goes. But get out there, this is a good time to invite your friends to play against you, invite your family to play against you, and make them experience just the glory of daily fantasy. But guys, that will be it for today's Wildcard Weekend matchup. If you haven't already, there is the Wildcard Weekend Millionaire Maker, $3.5 million, $1 million to the winner. So that in itself is a way to kind of enter that. So, all right. Final thoughts, predictions, hot takes. Does anybody have any upsets this weekend?
I think Houston can beat Kansas City. Is that an upset?
Sure. Yeah. They're 3.5-point dogs. So yeah.
Yeah.
No other hot takes.
Well, I'll give a daily fantasy hot take. I think Tyler Eifert goes double dong. I don't know if you can use the term double dong in football, but if you can, double dong for Tyler Eifert.
He'll hit 2 home runs.
I got a hot take. We didn't mention him, so I think he should be mentioned because he's really cheap, and we talked about how bad running back is. I think James Starks outscores Eddie Lacy, and PPR, that is in Starks is 3.6K, so I'd give him a look.
Okay, I guess I need to do one now. I'll say Martavis Bryant outscores Antonio Brown.
Oh, not again.
Oh, no. That's a hot take.
All right, my hot take is that I agree with Adam. Marvin Jones will be on the winning Millionaire Maker team. That is, so we'll see. All right, that'll do it. I'm Socrdave David Kitchen, and on behalf of Andrew, Adam, and Geoff, we'll see you next time.